is Joan Henriksen. Student truly dedicated to her profession, Joan has taught me so much about occupational therapy. And even more so, she has taught me about the power of the individual, and that when you give someone the room to shine, they will burst forth in ways unexpected. Warm welcome to Joan.
So I was 21 years old, and I got a job as the public use intern at this little teeny tiny wildlife refuge way up north on the Maine-New Hampshire border. I was so excited about this job. I had all these fantasies about living up in Maine, the whole outdoor lifestyle thing. I'm from a kind of a small, not so fun city in the Midwest, and to me, Maine felt very mountainous and very wild. Unfortunately, the job was not a lot of fun. The refuge staff, they were a little dysfunctional, and the other intern and I, well, let's just say we didn't really click. I spent most of that summer reading books, watching VHS tapes, and writing sad, sad letters home to all of my friends. My dreams of this adventurous summer had really just turned into more of a homesick time at summer camp. But I did have one goal for myself. I was going to climb a mountain. Old Spec is the 4th highest mountain in Maine. And the Trail of Old Spec is part of the Appalachian National Scenic Trail, which begins in northern Georgia and stretches over 2,120-something odd miles and ends at Mount Katahdin in northern Maine. Now, the Appalachian Trail is very well marked. White blazes are placed on trees within sighted distance of one another. That way, a hiker can stand at one blaze, look to the next, and then know they're on the trail. So, I got in my car, drove to Old Spec, saw some white blazes, and headed up. At the time, I was in pretty decent shape. I played basketball at school a couple times a week, did some additional workouts, feeling pretty strong. But as some of you in our audience already know, hiking up a mountain is a really different kind of workout. Within a few moments, I was starting to feel muscle groups I didn't even know existed. And within about 15 minutes, I was beginning to seriously and severely regret my decision. But I was not going to stop. This summer had not lived up to any of my expectations. So I was going to climb this mountain. So I started concentrating on each white blaze. I would walk to one, pause, kind of catch my breath like this, and then walk to the next. I didn't think about how far I had to go. I just thought about getting to that next white blaze. This continued on for a time, and then I saw a sign, Summit. Really excited. Kind of break out of the trees, this little flat area. It was good to be at the top. Now the summit of Old Spec is not particularly spectacular. It has a fire tower on top, and hikers are encouraged to climb to the top and get that nice panoramic view. However, I was so exhausted that I literally couldn't climb that tower. It was about, I don't know, the equivalent of a flight of stairs. Instead, I sat at the base, totally drenched with sweat, shivering, and eating the sandwich that I brought for myself. And then, contrary to what I thought would happen, climbing down was actually no easier than climbing back up. I had to pause and take frequent rest breaks, which, as you might imagine, was a little embarrassing when you had people coming back up that you were passing. By the time I got to my car, I was literally shaking with fatigue. But I was triumphant. I had climbed that mountain. And something else happened that day as well. a little seed was planted in my mind. I had fallen in love with the idea of hiking the Appalachian Trail, and I resolved that one day I would hike the entire distance. The motivation, goals, and desires of every individual are unique. Too often, as healthcare practitioners, we're looking for that prescriptive, one-size-fits-all solution to health and wholeness. But people are unique. Some people, they might enjoy hiking over 2,000 miles. Others would literally do anything possible to avoid it. But everyone has goals for themselves. Whether it's scaling some snowy peak in the Himalayas, or being able to reach out, turn a key, and open their own front door without pain. In occupational therapy, regardless of the goal, the process is always the same. The task is broken down into individual pieces, and the individual walks from blaze to blaze until they accomplish their goal. In occupational therapy, we are taught to consider the volition and personal motivation of each individual or patient that we work with. We ask, what do you hope to accomplish with therapy? What do you hope to achieve? This is a process that is so easy in concept, but absolutely maddening in execution. Oftentimes, people will tell you much more about what they do rather than what they say. For the most part, people are polite. They want to be compliant with therapy. So they'll sit down and do whatever task you've asked them to do. But it's not the occupation that actually speaks to them. As healthcare practitioners, we worry so much about the compliance of our patients. Are they being compliant with their medications, with their diet, with the therapeutic plan that you have so carefully crafted for them? The hiking community has a phrase I think really addresses this issue. It is simply, hike your own hike. Essentially what this phrase means is that an individual's reasons and ways of hiking are all different. But the way that individual becomes successful is if they hike the way that is meaningful for them. We can give our patients top-of-the-line medication. We can give them 6, 7 different kinds of wonderful, handcrafted, adaptive devices. We can give them therapeutic plans of all kinds that we know if they listen to us, it is totally going to change their life. But what we can't give to them is the motivation to accomplish their goals. I would task you with this. The most powerful thing that we can do as healthcare practitioners is to give them the helping hand with the goals they have for themselves. I spent some time working at a hand clinic. I was there observing, and I saw lots of patients come in and out. And one day, a woman came in. She was a mom. She had her 2 young children with her. They came in, the kids sat down next to her. She started talking to the therapist. This woman was a veteran, and while she was serving, she had injured her shoulder and had a brachial plexus injury. And this injury was starting to give her some problems. She was experiencing numbness and increasing weakness. At first, things were pretty light. She's answering questions, bantering back and forth with the therapist. But then the therapist asked her a question. What are you concerned about in regard to your injury? And her face just totally changed. She kind of looked away, put her hand up, shook her head. The therapist pressed her and said, "No, I really want to know. What are you concerned about?" And she looked up at the therapist, looked her in the eye. She started to cry. She said, "My greatest concern is that I'm going to lose the ability to care for my children." Can you imagine what it would have been like to have been that mother? To worry that she was going to lose the ability to wake up in the morning, cook her children breakfast, that perhaps she might lose the ability to reach out with both hands and pull her children into a hug. Her motivation was very clear. To this woman, motherhood was her greatest occupation. In therapeutic practice, it's easy to think that all we're doing is just correcting deficits and creating greater independence for individuals. However, as occupational therapists, we are taught to consider the greater environment and social setting for each patient and client we work with. We don't live alone. We live inside a community. I spent some time in a pediatric practice, and I worked with a couple of young men, about 11 or 12 years old. They had come to therapy to work on their social skills. Additionally, one of these young men had some difficulty with his gross and fine motor skills, while the other had some learning disabilities and some difficulty reading. They were assigned the task of baking cookies together, which is, some of you know is very OT, well, cooking. Now, this is a task that would have been very difficult for either of them to accomplish on their own. However, they used the strengths of one another. The one with better motor skills measured and mixed the ingredients, while the one with better reading skills carefully read out the directions to him. And in this way, they were able to accomplish their goal. But they weren't just learning about making cookies. They were learning about friendship as well. It's these little moments in life that build on one another. Just as small steps we take to scale a mountain. As healthcare practitioners, we are here to help the patients and clients we work with conquer every mountain they wish to climb. We're here to guide them and to help them find that beautiful balance between what they want and what they need. Now, are some of you wondering whether or not I made it back to Maine and back to that mountain? Well, almost 3 years to the day, a very different hiker quickly made her way over the rugged Maine terrain. I started at Springer Mountain down northern Georgia in about late March. And over the course of 2,000 miles, I got in great shape. I was hiking 15 to 18 miles a day in addition to carrying a 35-pound backpack. But at that point, it felt normal and natural. I was so excited to see Ospec again. Once I got there, just headed straight to the top. I didn't need to pause or take any breaks. And what seemed to be but a moment, I was back in that same parking lot that had been almost my undoing 3 years previous. What had seemed like an all-day adventure passed in a blink of an eye. I paused, kind of caught my breath, and headed up the next mountain. I'll leave you with this. Everyone that we come in contact with has their own goals, their own struggles, their own mountains. And being able to unlock the potential within each individual that we work with unlocks our potential as healthcare professionals. Thank you.